Hello and welcome to IDG Chit Chat Live for the week of March 9th, 2015. In this episode, we will be talking about the brand new episode of Who Do You Think You Are, which featured Julie Chen. Hello and welcome to the show this evening. Glad to have everybody here with us again. Joining me today are Jennifer Alford, publisher, Terry O'Connell, executive director, and our special guests, Sharon Atkins and Valerie Eichard-Lear. Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Evening.
Good. Hi.
So, Who Do You Think You Are is back on. It's very, very exciting. Yay!
Yay.
For those of you who didn't watch the show, this will be your warning. We will be discussing the episode, so if you haven't seen it, pause now, go watch the show, and come back. You can hear what we thought about it. So, before we get started, I want to put Valerie on the spot a second.
Okay.
Because in the green room, she was showing us this really interesting sheet she has. No, it's cool. And actually, somebody, I take notes on my yellow notepad for the episodes, but she actually has a printed sheet. Yeah, look at that.
It's electronic, so if you want to type on it, you can. But I don't do that. I handwrite notes, old school. But I created the worksheet for when hoodoo is going on when I'm having a class, or when it's not, then I pass this out. But on this side, the first column is where and who they're talking to. Where are they at and who are they talking to from the very beginning all the way down to the end. And then on the right-hand side are what documents, like what did they obtain. And usually, like in this case, the first thing that they did was go on Ancestry, a tree on Ancestry. So, and then it takes up more than one page usually. But I would be happy to send that out electronically.
Very cool.
Very
So
cool.
do you
I usually do it in a notebook and lose everything because it's, 500 pages in to 700,000 different notes.
Here's my notes. It's a whole little tiny piece of paper.
Oh, my word.
And
Well, that's
I lose
better
it.
than nothing.
Yeah.
Well, at least I don't feel so bad. We all take notes.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that this time I was so excited to watch it. Just the music. Yeah. I totally just lived there and watched it and nothing. No social media, nothing. I just enjoyed the show.
Okay, so here's my embarrassing story, because it premiered on Daylight Savings Time Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had told my husband that afternoon, no, we're not staying up. It's on at 10 o'clock. Are you crazy? I'm going to go to bed. It's 10 o'clock at night. That's insane. Why is it on at 10 o'clock at night? Well, we'd forgot to change the clock in the living room. And I'm like, hey, the TiVo's recording something. And I switched the channel, and I look at the clock, and I'm like, it's only 9. Oh, my God, I was wrong about the start time. This is fantastic. And he looked at me, he's like, and I didn't get it till the next day, but he looked at me and went, are you going to watch this? I'm like, yeah. And I settled down, and I watched the entire episode. And then about noon the next day, I realized, that's why I'm so tired. Oh, look at that. It's a different time zone now.
I need a nap.
I need a nap.
That's fun.
So what were your ladies' impressions about this one?
I thought it was particularly interesting that they emphasized a lot about the culture of what she was investigating, of her ancestors, and how they talked about going to that newspaper that was written in that language to find another copy of the obituary for her grandfather. They went to the Chinese. He says, if you want to hear what the Chinese are saying, then go to this newspaper, not to the article that she had found.
The foreign language newspaper.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that, there was the English version and then the Chinese version, which, really shared a lot more detail about his life.
I think, though, that with what he was doing in life, it made sense that his information kind of crossed over into the English papers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Did anybody else besides me try to guess throughout the show what that phrase was that she was trying to figure out?
An improper childhood?
Right.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that
yeah.
that went wild on Twitter. Because I admit I was doing the live tweet. That's why some of my notes are a little scanty. But yeah, that was constant in the tweeting.
What were some of the guesses that you saw?
Oh my gosh, from embarrassing, like, to like giving up for adoption or something like that. There were various comments, but nothing even close to what it ended up being. I mean, it was all over the board, from the worst thing you can imagine.
At one point, I thought maybe he had that term because his father was the head of that education, the Department of Education, and picked people to go to the top 10 schools, that maybe he didn't get to that category of the top 10 schools.
Yeah, I thought that too. I thought perhaps, he didn't in school, and so, he was kind of shunned by his father or something like that. But my husband, he was like, no, the Chinese are very literal. He's like, he didn't have a childhood. And I was like, you think?
Yeah, he was right.
Yeah. He was right, yeah, because really what it turned out is, he had to, at the age of 13, he had to take over, taking care of the family because of his father's death. And, so it was totally taken aback by a lot of people. There was either one too, where that improper childhood, like abuse or something like that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it was all over the board.
I was going to say that definitely shows the difference between Asian thinking and Chinese, those types of cultures, and the Western world. I mean, we automatically, when we heard from everybody's conversations and other things that I've read, everybody here automatically, when you heard improper childhood, started thinking terrible, terrible things, And all that meant was very literally, he had none.
Yeah.
Really.
And there was interesting to me that there was not really any mention of vital statistical records they went to. They mentioned that the grandfather died young, the great-grandfather died young, but they didn't say how or why or...
Now, I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, but from what I understand, there's a lot of record destruction, especially because of World War II.
Oh, Japanese came in maybe and took some. Yeah, okay.
That's why you didn't see vital records or those kind of things. You saw printed, like in the book, or historical...
The Gazetteer.
Writings. The Gazetteer. And that one book, it was notable, and I didn't catch the whole title, but it was like a biographical sketch like we see in county histories. So, and I attributed it to record destruction, because I immediately said, where's the records? Where's the death certificate? And because it's totally outside my box. I've not done, any type of research in China or, Asian research at all. So this was really, really interesting.
Which I have to say is one of the reasons why I was excited to see this episode, because for people who all I ever do is European research. I mean, look at me. Hello. I don't do, and it's Western European. It's not even, like interesting. No, I'm just teasing. I saw Terry glaring there for a minute. What do you mean?
Because I thought the same thing. They really went outside the box of the normal. Who do you think you are show, bringing us to China. And not that I don't want to see the normal, because I'm really excited about Sean Hayes going to Ireland. Beyond all, I am so excited. Yeah. But this really, it was an amazing show because of that, because it was so different.
Because you got to see different countries, different societies, different religions.
I think it was more, this one was more like all the cultural events, having, they went to the altar, and,
there was a lot of cultural, social.
So much, yes. it's nice to see all of that.
Right.
There was one record office, though, the county records office. That's when it went into him being an scholar official in the Confucian Academy, and so that was the type of record that the county record office had. Totally different than what we're thinking a county record office would have. So I really enjoyed that part. That was towards the end, though, so we don't want to go too far. Too far.
Well, they
I'm around. It's okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Well, I loved it when she went to the school. And they point to the photo of her grandfather, and the kids all knew who he was and everything. I just thought that was so awesome.
Yeah.
I would give.
I got goosebumps.
Great how they followed his occupational line. Maybe that was because of not having the vital records. When they went to the very first gentleman that she met with in Shanghai, told him about belonging to this.
She was in Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore.
At the National Library.
Right. About the association that he did with the group that took the ammunition, during the war. The philanthropic work. That's what I'm looking for, that he did.
Yeah, and she didn't know any of that, so she admitted that she never met this man and wasn't really, she didn't have a connection with him, didn't know much about him. So watching her face as she was discovering that type of information and a little bit more about him and what he stood for, and then when she found, about, what he did during World War II, and I thought that was very moving, because you could see her making the connections to her ancestor right in front of you.
Right. That was really great.
And that leads all of us, and as a reminder or just a lead, that we all should be meeting with historians. Like they have shown, Julie met with the historian. I didn't catch the name, but that's where the Chinese Academic Journal that was done in 1937 was brought in the World War II. How it fleshed out how he helped with the relief effort and so forth. But it reminded me, I really need to meet with or contact those historians more than I have, which is only like one or two.
I do that a lot. I do, because they have usually their fingertips on unusual access to unusual records that you aren't going to find anyplace else.
You were going to say something, Terry?
I was going to say, I usually try to reach out to like the local county, town historians just to see what's there. Because I know like here in Morton Grove, which is a suburb of Chicago, where my German family is from, they had a lot of nice school pictures and things like that, letters that like my grandmother's uncles had written to other schoolmates for reunions and stuff like that. So it was really nice to kind of get those pieces, though they might not really add anything to the genealogy of it, but it does add to the family history.
Yeah, I was doing that last week. I was talking to a local historian in upstate New York, and I said I would like to get some church records, and she said, which church? And I told her, she said, oh, I belong there. And I said, do you think they have the records? And she goes, honey, we only have 50 people in our church.
Wow.
Okay, never mind, just kidding.
That's funny. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but since we kind of talked about the great-grandfather who was the scholar and in the Confucian Academy with the appointment by the emperor, maybe I'm odd, but I kept remembering in my head when they were talking about that time and the emperor, the last emperor. I kept remembering the movie, The Last Emperor. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
I don't think maybe. I don't remember it.
It came out in
it.
the 80s? 80s? It came out
Around there, yeah.
Late 80s.
Had Peter O'Toole in it. The reason I kept remembering it is because you see the last emperor as an old man in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Under, communist China's Chinese rule, and then it flashes back and tells his life story through the course of the movie. And you see him in some of the scenes. What I was remembering was him interacting with the different appointments and political figures, and so I could, because of that movie, I was thinking to myself, well, this must have been what he looked like, and this would have been what he, in 1913, how he would have dressed, but maybe I'm just a weirdo.
No, maybe we'll go and rent the movie now.
Now, I don't know how accurate it was, but, Sorry, Terry.
I was just wondering if it was on Netflix.
I don't know, but you know what? You're
look while we talk.
Okay.
I would have probably gone down the rabbit hole of why was the educational ministry abolished.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Well, the emperor, when he was removed from power, is because of communism. Japan invaded, all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the, from what, now I may be wrong, but this is what I'm remembering from reading and other things, is that a lot of those high officials were basically put out, and a new government was installed, and so on. So out with the old, in with the new type of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would be guessing.
So what did you derive from it being the timeline? If this grandfather died in the 60s?
Yeah, he died in the 60s though, but he was in Singapore. Remember? Right. So it sounds like he was a expat.
But if he died in the 60s, what year would the great grandfather would have died?
I thought they said on that plaque on the wall.
Yeah.
They said that was an appointment from 1913. That was when he was appointed to that. So, and we know he was an adult, married, and her mother was born with him when he had to flee Burma back to China in 42?
Yeah, that's the grandfather. I'm talking about the great-grandfather.
So I'm doing the age. So if he was an adult with children in 1942, let's say he was in his mid-20s. So 42, so he was probably born in the late teens, early 1920s.
Okay.
So I would probably say his father, the great-grandfather of Julie Chen, probably died in what? Early 1930s?
Yeah.
Late 1920s?
He was one of the youngest children?
He was the second youngest. I thought she
said. Yeah. So, keep that in mind. What did they say? They had like 14 kids or something like that?
I didn't catch.
Yeah. It was a lot of kids. So there's, at least a good decade of child years.
So I would say he probably died in the mid to late 1920s, just to be on the safe side, because he died when he was 13, and then he's got to become an adult, and then he get married, and then have his own kids, because she said her mother remembered leaving Burma and going back to China.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, in the house, where the awesome photos are, we'll get to that. But I have a note here, the name on the wall, and then I have 1903.
Oh, 1903. So I was off by 10 years. That's an important.
So that's the death date? Yeah. Well, I wrote down 1903, but it didn't do me any bit of good because I didn't write what that was.
That wasn't the death date. That was his appointment date.
His appointment date.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
So that shifts everything back 10 years. So yeah, I would say he probably died in the late teens and 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see it, to actually plot out the timeline.
Oh, don't tempt us.
Well, I gotta watch it again and then hit pause.
So we can figure out what was going on in history at the time to understand maybe why he lost his job.
And that could be a good blog post for you.
Look at that. Instigator.
Listen, I know it's already working in your head.
All I know is it was beautiful scenery, and I want to go to Singapore because that looked absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it did.
It was.
And I'm thinking new record sets I know nothing about.
Yeah. In a language I can't read.
Yeah, but they're pretty. You know, that's about all I could do without a translator.
Well, the scenery, and where the tomb is, and the location. I'm glad that she asked. Is this significant of being up this high and overlooking? Like it wasn't just by happenstance that it was there. That there's a reason, and then bringing in the culture of, how they had colored pieces of paper, in symbol of giving that person money and lifting up and then burning the paper and so forth. But when you look down in the rows of greenery and then it was just absolutely breathtaking.
Oh yeah.
Now, did you catch that the name on the gravestone was not his given name?
Yeah. I forget what it was, but it was not his name.
Right.
Right.
I thought that was interesting that they put his titled name.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Maybe I don't know what else to call it, but his appointment name, what he was known as, instead of his actual familial name.
Mm-hmm. How do people know who it is then? I mean, how?
Guess you have to just know.
Gotta ask the right questions to the right people.
Yeah. I'd go up there and put a plaque.
Yes.
And then the entire genealogy.
Well, QR code, right?
Yeah, QR code.
But she might have been told, and once again, there's not enough room to show everything in an hour, so something may have been left on the editing room floor. Which
reminds me, there are some bonus videos on the website.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah,
that's really good to know. Because I was going to say, I would wonder if in his biography in the Gazetteer, if it might have been listed in there. Because it has to be, the two have to be listed someplace together, especially if he was that famous, for that area, to have stuff written about him and all that kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
Well, like the other episodes that we watch, and we've talked about it before offline, but you always want to say, well, go down further on that page, or what's the next one, or wait, back up. It's like, do you catch yourself doing
I missed that? Do that again, right?
Yeah. and then what?
Right.
Well, lucky for them on this episode, very few of us, at least on this panel, could have read ahead.
So, yeah, that's very true.
This is true.
Very true.
I mean, there are times I'm looking at the narrator going, I've already read that. Why are you not caught up with me? Hello?
Yeah. Well, they spend hundreds and hundreds of hours. It's just amazing. They've increased the number of hours per celebrity, and then the amount, and maybe by the next week's live Chit Chat, I can have those figures, because I don't want to misquote, because they were amazing. I found out in January the number of hours of those that don't, they just do the basic research to see if there's a story there, and that's a good number of hours. But I want to quote the exact amount they gave us, and
I heard like over 1,000 hours per show.
Oh yeah, but they've upped it.
Really?
Upped it. And so the actual celebrities that are chosen to be on the show is even more. So I'll gather that together and get that to you all.
That'd be interesting.
Now, there were 2 blog posts that we found that were written so far. I'm sure there are more. But the Genealogy Insider from Family Tree Magazine and, of course, Ancestry both had blog posts out about it. Have any of you read those?
No.
Jen did.
I read them. I found them.
Yes, she did.
What I found interesting, the Genealogy Insider blog post, it was kind of more of an overview and didn't really talk too much about the episode itself. But the Ancestry one I thought was interesting because, we're used to Ancestry being the sponsor for all these. And so, of course, they want everyone to buy a membership and to use all their records. But in the blog post, they actually talk a lot about how important it is to visit those archives and to talk to local people that are knowledgeable about history of the area. And, they even admitted, not all records are online. So,
Oh my
it's kind of
God.
like, all right, good, you're informing people properly. But they also included some interesting tips on researching that were provided by the pro-genealogist. So it was kind of an interesting blog post, especially for someone who may not, be as into genealogy as we are. I think it gave some good foundational tips in that blog post.
I'll have to go read that.
Good, yeah. There goes my blinders. Instead of being focused on what my project is right now, I'll go down that rabbit hole. I know now, instead of working on the report, I'll be going online and looking at the back behind the scenes. Oh, thanks a lot.
Well, the title of the Ancestry blog post is "Who Do You Think You Are? Returns with Julie Chen. Sometimes you just have to go and walk up the mountain."
I love it.
Oh,
Long.
Good title.
It's a long title, but it's appropriate.
yes.
Yes.
Well, can I share that Julie tweeted at that point where it says, "That was a long hike."
I did notice that she had a costume change.
Well, and I felt bad for the one lady who was carrying the long stick with the bags on the ends.
Yes.
She was like the oldest of the group, and she's carting all this stuff up the hill, and I'm like, seriously, nobody else offered to help?
It was
They might have offered if she
to
told
do
them
it to bring her offerings to her ancestor.
I'm thinking about the poor TV cameras. I mean, the filming guys.
Oh, they all have GoPros now. They're lightweight. No.
If you say so.
I have no idea.
As long as you can admit that.
Okay. Often.
But that was funny how she said that was a long hike, and I still wanted to say, how long was there a break for everyone to take a breather before you started taping again?
Put the makeup back on.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
That's right. Somebody get me a banana.
Yeah.
I will say though, I think it was probably my favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the very with the tombstone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then being able to see the genealogist in China, I believe Hunan Li. There again, I didn't catch the names really good, but that's why we can go watch the recording. But I've at least they brought in on-site genealogist.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yep, you need to do sometimes. We all can't just jump on that jet.
Really? What's up with that?
Yeah, my last name's Lair, but I don't have no Lair jet.
You're funny.
I have this one girl who used to work for me who was Chinese, and when her mother passed, I had the opportunity to go to a Chinese funeral and observe some of the customs that were definitely different than going to wakes and that for, I guess, my kind of people.
Yeah.
But to watch all of the burning of the money so the ancestors can get it in heaven. She had explained a lot of this to us after her mom died and after she was buried and when they would go to the cemetery, and I could never really grasp it. Like, it just didn't make sense to me because it wasn't the normal. Mm-hmm. So to see it all play out on TV, it just, it took me back to the years after her mom died and talking with her about all these things where I thought, oh my God, that's just, I guess crazy was the thought in my head because it wasn't the norm for me, but it was actually really kind of beautiful to watch and be a witness to something that is so sacred to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting in this program how they didn't talk about the traditional way to find records. I mean, the whole show was built upon the newspaper story, the obit, the finding the Chinese newspaper, going to the homeland of where the ancestor was from, learning the customs, doing the local, and as you said, putting their feet on the ground and going up the hill. It was all those traditional ways to put an ancestor's story together that somebody new to genealogy wouldn't necessarily be thinking about.
Mhm.
And it was actually very smart of them to do that, so that all these new wannabe genealogists know that it's just not planning on to Ancestry. And
It's
there's
not point and click.
shaking leaf, there's my whole tree.
Right.
Well, then
Magically.
then there's the people like Julie Chen who, if she went out to Ancestry, there would be no shaky leaves.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people kind of forget about those, that there are some people who, recent immigrants or, destruction of courthouses or the slave wall or, Holocaust, a number of other things, who they're going to go out there and their lines are just going to end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're either going to have to get creative, if there's anything left, or kind of try to fluff out what little they have.
Right.
Well, that brings the historical side of it, meeting with the historians, the historical journal. I was just wrapped around that Chinese academic journal.
Yeah.
Then the other one in the county gazetteer, and then in the book at the county records office, about the academy and Confucian Academy. It's just like, yeah, we forget even those where we do have records, available, and we can find things online. It's like, yes, I need to do that, and I was reminded that in January that's what I need to do next is what were the histories of the churches where I live. I'm now living on the ground that my ancestors walked on, and now that I'm here, I got to make an effort, make a point to do that.
It's kind of like
everybody does.
It's kind of like you've picked all the low-hanging fruit, and now you actually have to do real research.
You got to get those fingers dirty.
Right.
Get away from the computer, doing on-site research.
Yeah.
So, which is exciting to do. Definitely, and planning your family vacations around that, where you can have that opportunity, and that's where I bring in the younger ones, bringing in the kids, my son thought everybody had a picnic in the cemetery.
You don't?
I said, well, sorry, when I was your age, I was scared to death to go in a cemetery. But no, and this is when he was like 2 or 3 years old. He goes, let's go on a picnic. Which cemetery today, Mom? No, but yeah, it was, and then the photos. Just, I don't know about you, but I just got goosebumps and just so jealous and I hope that they took photos of those photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
So
one of
our
my
time.
favorite. Wait, let me say one
Go
more
ahead,
thing,
Jen.
Shannon.
Nope,
One
that's
of the
fine.
things that I really loved about this episode was at the end when Julia said that after learning about her grandfather's life, that she now better understands her own parents and what their lives were like in China and coming over and being, the immigrant ancestors. And I think that a lot of people, that's one of the things that we really get out of our family history is we understand the previous generations a little bit better. Because I know for me, I knew my grandparents, but I never asked them about what their lives were like. And it wasn't until I started doing genealogy and asking my dad the tough questions that I really started to understand them so much better and understood why my grandma, would nitpick my grandfather to death, and that it was all out of love, and it just gave me a different perspective on things, and I think a lot of people get that from family history.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I know reading divorce papers in my family has made me understand the people who grew up with these people. And that's the only way I can be vague and not
call them crazy.
No, it's fine to anybody living.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But I definitely agree.
Well, I was going to ask if anybody had any last thoughts, and Terry and Jen, unless you have another thought, does Sharon or Valerie, do you have any last thoughts this evening before we close?
No, I really enjoyed this, and as I said, for the reasons that I discussed before, it was a different viewpoint and well worth the nice story that it turned out to be and what was found out.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, going outside the box, putting yourself out there to see what else besides your own research. And German, I've got Germany and Irish and so forth. So and also too giving me some names, that I can refer people to if anybody asks about Asian research and where to go. And it gave me goosebumps and made me realize, what they had to go through, what they did, like Jennifer said, a different insight on that, and that was it. Turned me around for someone who, oh no, this episode, no, but none of them are. You don't say that.
Yeah.
So
You can always
it's
learn
great.
something.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, or be reminded.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciated you taking the time out of your evening to show up and chit chat with us.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
You are welcome. Anytime, you just let us know. So, remember, we would love to hear from you as well. Post us a comment down below. Follow us on Twitter. Check out our Facebook page. Go out to our website, www.theinDepthGenealogist.com, or even just send us an email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, have a great day, and remember to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.